First and foremost, you need to check out your licensure laws. You need to check with your state licensing board and find out what their policy for telehealth is anyway. Like, are you allowed to even be out of the state practicing? That's the first thing. I'm licensed in Virginia, just like Janine, and Virginia's fine with an LCSW being anywhere. The other part of it is where you're traveling to. Do they allow you to be sitting in their state or their country and conducting business that you should be licensed in that state or country?
Welcome to the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Collab Oasis Clinical Consultation Groups. Hi, I'm Janine Wolf, and I'm your colleague down the hall. I have a passion for helping fellow therapists get the clinical and collegial support we all need to do this work. And wow, it just keeps getting harder every day. I'm the founder and facilitator of the Collab Oasis Clinical Consultation Groups. I have been a social worker for almost 30 years, and I own a successful solo online private practice. More of us than ever are practicing in solo or online practices, and we all need colleagues to process cases with, commiserate with on those really hard days, and also to celebrate our successes with. In this podcast, I'll bring you insights about trends and changes in our field and sit down with amazing therapists who are doing amazing work. We'll discuss fictionalized cases, ways to practice sustainably, and of course, there will be plenty of laughing. I love laughing with friends. I'm so glad to have you as one of my colleagues down the hall. Hello, everyone. You are listening to another episode of the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. I'm your host, Janine Wolf, and I'm joined today by my good friend, Kym Tolson. You may know her as the Bill Like a Boss guru, or you may know her as the clinical AI guru. She's got so many hats these days. I just am so inspired by seeing all the really amazing work that she's doing for therapists. And she also has a new podcast for the clinical AI, so we will make sure that we include that in the show notes. But today we're talking to her with her traveling therapist hat on.
Yes.
So yeah. So I wanted to delve into this because this is not something a lot of people were aware of. I wasn't even aware of before you. So let me just welcome you first and say I'm thrilled to have you on. It's so good to see you. Where are you in the world right now?
So I'm in the Dominican Republic right now. We've been down here for about 3 months, and we're heading back on Saturday back to the US. So yeah, we've just been down here for the winter, chilling.
Yeah, it's been great. I love seeing all the photos and stuff of just living your best life. You are such a good example for us.
Thank you. I try.
Yeah. All right. So let's just start at the beginning.
Okay.
Tell us how this whole thing sort of came to be.
Okay, well, it's kind of a long story, but if anybody knows Dr. Amber Lyda, she's pivotal in this story. Basically, I had a brick and mortar office, but I love to travel. So I was probably traveling like 8 weeks a year, and I would just I'd go travel and then I'd cram all my clients in and then I go travel again. So I was like super burned out really, because I was trying to see all these clients. And then I was in Mexico one day and I came across the online therapist group that was I guess it was probably 2018, I think. And I was like, what is this? And I clicked, and this was before obviously any of us were like telehealth therapists, which of course a lot of us are now.
Right. Yeah. I think we both found her at the same time. She's been like the godsend for both of us, right? Amber Lyda.
Absolutely is. Oh my God. Her name's Dr. Amber Lyda, the online therapist group. She's amazing. But anyway, I saw that, and I saw it the same night that I went out to dinner with an old high school friend that lived in Playa del Carmen. So we were in Playa del Carmen vacationing, and the two, like the worlds just collided. Exactly right. And I was like, wait a second. Are you saying that I can be online and I could probably just work from anywhere? I didn't know the logistics of that yet, but just seeing Amber's inspiration of the online therapist group, I was like, oh my gosh. So of course I signed right up for her step-by-step course, which she still runs today to get an online therapy practice up and running. Took it. And then that was it. I was like, okay, I'm going to go online. And then I was like, well, wait a second. What if I just wanted to work from anywhere, just sell my house? Like I had a house and my boyfriend had a house, and we were like, we should just sell everything. And he actually got a job in Florida, like the first job he found, like right on the ocean. We were like, okay, let's give this a try. So we moved to Florida. He took this job and it was he had to go into the office then. But that was February 2020. And then the pandemic hit. That same month that we moved, we're like, oh my God, now they've shut the beaches down. We're trapped in this apartment. It's like, oh my gosh, we're looking at the beautiful ocean, but we can't even go on it because they literally, you guys probably remember, locked the beaches down.
Yeah, they did.
Florida did open back up quicker than other places. But so we did that. And then it turned out that our lease was going to be up. So we were like, you know what? Ken's online. I'm online. Like, what if we just sold literally everything and just put the rest in storage and decided to just like live in Airbnbs and travel the world. So that's what we did. All of our remaining furniture and stuff we put into a storage unit, which we have now realized was a big mistake, but we put it all in a storage unit. And for the last 2 years, we've just lived in Airbnbs and we've gone all over the United States, back and forth like 3 times, I think. We've been in a bunch of different countries. Like I said, right now I'm in the Dominican Republic. Later this year, we plan to go like to Europe and do my dream is like all the beach towns across the Mediterranean. So that's going to be,
that'd be amazing. Wow.
I know. Yeah. I'm excited about that. So that's the plan right now, but it changes depending on what's happening in our lives and all that good stuff. So that's sort of the story of how I got to where I am.
Okay. Yeah. And the first year you drove zigzagged across the United States. Some of that was to be at specific places at specific times.
Yes, we totally did, because there were so many. There's still, we're going to go back across the US and hit all the places we still haven't hit yet. But yeah, they were mainly for conferences. Like there was one I wanted to go to in Costa Rica, and then I had to be back to Nashville where Janine and I actually were roommates for that one, which was so fun. Yep. So we went to a therapist conference there. But yeah, sometimes the travels are centered around like having to be at a certain place, a certain time. In April, I had to be in Oregon for Megan Smith-Gunnell's Thrive retreat that she's doing out in Oregon. So the plan now is to get back to the US and slowly work our way over to Oregon before April. So yeah.
Okay. So how did your clients deal with the change? So I suspect, like me, you moved your clients online first, and then you came up with this idea. So because I know trying to get my whole client base on board, they all came with me, but they were highly anxious about it because the pandemic had not happened yet. And they were like, what do you mean we're going to do video sessions?
I know. Yeah. it was a challenge for sure. I think now it would be a lot easier for any therapist because it's so accepted, but it was a challenge. Not all of them came with me. A few of them, I just helped them find, other therapists. I gave referrals to therapists I knew were still going to be in the office. So that's pretty much how that worked. Most came and were totally fine with it. And then, when I decided to start traveling across the country, there's just, firstly, I didn't disclose it to every single client, just the ones that maybe had known me for a long time or always kind of like interested, like, what do you do with your life now? Because they knew I loved to travel anyway. And
you used a virtual background then.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
I kept the virtual background on. So it was just consistent across different spaces, and then we started traveling. And now I only have a few clients anyway, because I've got a lot of other income streams, but the ones I have right now, they're familiar with what I'm doing. They know I'm out of the country. They know that my Wi-Fi isn't always reliable. Like sometimes in the Dominican Republic, we just have power outages for no reason, so a session might go out, or we had to adapt. For example, Simple Practice does not want you to be international. So using a VPN out of the country, it's blocking my telehealth sessions. I can't see my clients. Right now, I'm having to see my clients through Zoom. So I've had to switch up the links and everything and see them that way. So there's adjustments that you have to make constantly, kind of living this lifestyle.
Okay. Yeah. And so you kind of introduced the idea to me of, I'm logistically right now, I would love to do what you're doing, but my husband can't travel extensively like I do because he still has customer meetings locally. So I sort of got the idea that, like you were talking about, you have a vacation coming up. So you jam everyone in the week before vacation, you go on vacation, you usually come home exhausted, refreshed, but exhausted. And then you
Yeah,
have to see all the clients that need to jam back in the next week. And it's exhausting. And you're also then losing pay that whole week that you're gone. You're losing money and spending money at the same time.
exactly.
Yeah. And so I was looking for a way to sort of maximize having built-in days off, or maybe if my husband was traveling for work, I could go with him. And while he's doing his thing, I can be in the hotel room seeing clients. So for people that don't even want to do it full-time like you do, there's lots of options with this.
Yeah,
There's lots of ways
absolutely.
to incorporate, getting some vacation time built in. Or if you go on vacation and you're like, oh, I just went on a vacation a couple months ago, I really can't afford it. So then decide 2 mornings, you're going to see X number of clients, and then you get the rest of the day off, something
hmm
like that.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've played with different schedules. I mean, like I said, I have other income streams, so I've got business I need to do, but recently for a while I was doing Monday, Friday in the mornings I would do business stuff, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday I would see clients in the mornings. I always try to do work in the morning so in the afternoons we can go explore like wherever we are. And
Mm-hmm.
usually Ken's finished with his work by then, so that was working out pretty well. Now, recently I decided I wanted to take Mondays and Fridays off completely. So I'd have like a 4-day weekend. And that's proving a little more difficult because I'm trying to cram it all into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, basically.
Mm-hmm.
All the business meetings, all, training, everything that I'm doing for all my memberships and everything. I'm trying to get it all in those 3 days, which has been more challenging than I thought it was going to be. But I'm determined. So it's a constant, like just learning flexibility, really learning how am I going to
Mm-hmm.
make this work so I can actually live this life that I want to live, and
Right.
be in the Dominican Republic and go to the beach and not just be sitting in an apartment or an Airbnb all day long working while he's out
Mm-hmm.
walking around. 'Cause he's got a super flexible job. He could pretty much do whatever he wants, so I'm
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
trying to navigate all those together.
Yeah. And I suspect the person that's wanting to do this is going to be a more flexible person anyway. They're going to be someone that's like, okay, I got to pivot here and shift there. I can't imagine someone who's really rigid in the way they conduct their lives is going to be doing this anyway.
Definitely not. Yeah. I mean, it's like, oh gosh, there's so many things that come up. Like just in a new Airbnb, you just move to a new Airbnb and inevitably something doesn't work right, so you're always having to like call the owner and tell them to fix this or the Wi-Fi's out, so there is a lot of flexibility. You have to be able to reschedule meetings and not stress too much about it, if the
Hmm.
internet's not working properly or something like that. And we do carry like Wi-Fi backups just in case, situations like that come up. But it's tough. I mean, flights get canceled, it's going to take you somewhere, and then maybe that Airbnb has to cancel. Like stuff happens all the time living this lifestyle. You have to be super flexible for sure.
Hmm. Okay.
hmm
All right. So if somebody is considering this, because, this is still a big leap for a lot of people,
hmm
what are the things that you would encourage them to do as far as, exploring this or considering if this is the right fit for them, things like that?
Well, first and foremost, you need to check out your licensure laws. You need to check with your state licensing board and find out what their policy for telehealth is anyway. Like, are you allowed to even be out of the state practicing? That's the first thing. I'm licensed in Virginia, just like Janine, and Virginia's fine with an LCSW being anywhere. The other part of it is where you're traveling to. Did they allow you to be sitting in their state or their country and conducting business that you should be licensed in that state or country? Like, for example, Texas does not want an LCSW sitting in their state at all, conducting business even back in their state of licensure. So if I'm going to be traveling through Texas, like I know I'm going to have to plan for that because I don't want to violate any laws or, try to pay taxes in that state or something if I'm traveling through there and not, get in trouble for it, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to be careful about that. Tech, making sure you've definitely got the Wi-Fi situation under control, thinking of contingency plans. You have to be sure about that. Like, hey, what am I going to do if I don't have the internet and I've got a big meeting? There's tons of options. Ken and I have different cell carriers, or we did for a long time. So I could use his hotspot or he could use my hotspot if that messed up. Public libraries are a godsend. They've saved me a million times in these Airbnbs that swear they have excellent internet and then there's no internet. Sedona, Arizona was one. I was out sitting in the library in my car at 6 a.m. there because of the time difference. But yeah. So, and what were the other, what was the question again?
Just about things to consider. Our liability insurance insurance is something you need to check on as well. Are there any policies that you know of these days that don't cover telehealth? Because I'm not
No, I
familiar
don't
with
think
any.
so. Most of them do cover. I use CPH and Associates, and there are ones that say it's also okay if you're out of the country practicing. It's fine as long as if there's any lawsuits, you're following your state guidelines, licensure guidelines, and if there is a lawsuit, you can bring it back into that state of licensure. So CPH and Associates. Yeah, I can't think of any that don't allow it as far as I know. Like HSPO is another one people use a lot. I think the psychologists have their own licensure that or protection that they can use. So it just depends. Just be super prepared, let your clients know if you want to. Not everybody does this, but let your clients know you're traveling. There might be hiccups and that you might have to reschedule because that does happen a lot, really. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you've discussed some of the challenge that you faced early on, though, when you're like, we put our stuff in storage and that was a mistake. Like, what are some things if somebody wants to go all in, what are the things that you would suggest? And it might be different for everybody.
It is different for everybody. I mean, when we first started, we weren't even sure we were going to like it, So the storage unit, I had a ton of furniture that, first of all, I made Ken drag to Florida. He was like, why are we bringing this? He wants to live with inflatable furniture. I'm like, that is ridiculous. But that's his dream is buy inflatable furniture. We haven't done that yet, but who knows, we might one day. So, I made him drag all that furniture down there. And then I was like, well, what if we hate it? I mean, what if we want to come right back and get an apartment or something? And he was like, okay. So I put all this, I don't know, probably $4,000 worth of furniture in the storage unit, which is $250 a month, and a ton of just junk, old clothes, just everything I've basically owned and drug with me to Florida, and 2 years later, it's like, we literally don't need any of this. We're still paying the storage unit fee, $250 a month. We could have bought all new furniture and stuff at this point. We really could have. And of course, we're not ready to stop. So who knows, how much longer. So we're having to go back into Florida and we're going to have to liquidate everything that's in there. We did it about 2 months ago. I got the Salvation Army to come through and take some stuff, but they wouldn't take everything. So now I've got to pay a junk truck to come to the storage unit, which is on the third floor of this storage building, to come and take the rest of the stuff out. So
wow.
I would just say, if you think you're a wandering soul and you're just ready to go, you don't need a storage unit. That stuff, I have one suitcase now, and even half the stuff in my suitcase I barely use. It's clothes I think I'm going to use, but I don't even use it.
Sounds like me packing for every vacation.
Exactly. Yeah. Just imagine that. And then just dragging this huge suitcase around for 2 years, basically, with half the stuff in it I don't even wear ever. So that's a big one. Cars, if you have cars, that's been a little bit of a problem for us because, like I said, we're out of the country. It's like, what do you do with your car when you're out of the country? We have 2 cars. So we actually have them in a storage unit right now. So we're paying for 3 storage units, which is just insane. It's like $1,000 a month, basically. So, think that through. Do you need your car? His one car was totally paid off, but we still have to store it somewhere. And you can't just park a car in South Florida, which is where our cars are, because the wind, the weather, it just deteriorates your car, really, if you're not washing it regularly. And then we have another convertible car, which we should have never bought to begin with, but that's in storage too. So we've got these cars, and when we come back to the US, it's going to be great because we'll have access to them. But when we're in Europe for 90 days of summer and all that, we're going to have to still find something to do with our cars. What else? This kind of goes with your other question, mail, what are you going to do with your mailing address and that sort of thing. My mom lives in Florida, so she let us use her address. So that's our legal residence is her address. We've never lived there, but it's where the car is registered to. It's our voter registration, my health insurance. They think I live there. And we pay my mom $100 a month to get our mail and then basically take pictures of it and upload it to us. And if it's something we really need, she'll overnight it to us. And of course we pay her to do that too. But she just sort of manages our mail for us, which is really helpful because it would have been tougher if we didn't have that option. Yeah.
Okay. And then to maximize your time, I would presume that, if you are the one person show in your private practice, maybe considering outsourcing some work with VAs is following, doing your insurance billing through your EHRs as far as just clicking the submit buttons, although that's pretty easy for most therapists to do themselves, but to do scheduling and rescheduling, things like that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I actually only have 2 clients I see right now. So that's pretty manageable for me. And I do use Simple Practice, as I mentioned, and it's super automated. As you guys know, if you're using EHR, they're all pretty much automated where the clients can just schedule online. And, the insurance is a click of a button. Once you understand insurance billing, it's pretty easy. I do have VAs, but they're really for my other businesses, but I couldn't live without them because they keep me super organized. Because I feel scattered a lot of the times, just like moving from place to place, a little like dysregulated, just new place. Like we just moved into a new place yesterday. It's like, I don't even like, where's the bathroom? I don't even remember which apartment I'm in. Like, where am I? So my VAs are super like organized people and they really help me. Leslie's my main VA. Like if she ever quits, I'm just going to cry because I don't know what I would do without her.
So it sounds like you wake up some mornings wondering like, where am I?
I do. Sometimes I'm like, wait a second, where am I? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is an Airbnb. We're in the Dominican Republic. We're in Punta Cana. Yeah, I just do a little like check, which sounds just bizarre, but it's true. Like it is discombobulating a little bit. And time zones, the time zone here is Atlantic. It's not Eastern, but most of my business is conducted in Eastern time. So my computer and my phone, I just set it to Eastern time. It's just easier for me. But I have missed a couple appointments here, like a hair appointment. I was late too because I forgot that their time zone was different than my time zone. So it's always like this adjustment thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the VAs, I've got 2 podcasts. I have a podcast editor that does a lot for me, which is super helpful. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, just outsourcing anything you don't want to do. Marketing, graphic design. Leslie, my VA, she's awesome with that. So luckily she does everything for me around that for like my social media and everything. Yeah. But you gotta find a system, I guess is the point.
Right. Yeah. And so then the marketing thing is a good tangent to kind of look at right now, because if you aren't in a stable place where you're maybe networking with local therapists, you need to find ways of making sure you're building that referral network and that you are still continuing to market if you're going to be accepting new clients while you're working on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I think I've been really blessed in my career because one, I'm an insurance-based provider and there's so many clients that want to use their insurance. So just even having that on, my website, or when I used to have a Psychology Today profile, just advertising insurance got me a lot of referrals. But what's always worked for me and what worked for me my entire career is like making really good relationships with like psychiatrists that are referring. And that has fed me for a long time. And then my own clients referring other clients to me has also been amazing, so I've been lucky in that aspect. I think good marketing. I am obsessed with AI as well as Janine. We're both obsessed with AI. So
yes, we are.
If your VA can't help you with that stuff, you can use AI to help with like SEO and writing, website copy and just introduction letters to referring providers. I mean, it helps make that process so much easier.
Yes. Chad GTP and I spent a lot of time together this morning. I'm going to be offering brain spotting intensives, and I've got to get copy up on my website and the socials and all that kind of stuff. So we worked together today to kind of map it all out. And I even had to do like, okay, make a to-do list for me first.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I know. We should have a whole episode on just all the cool things we do with ChatGPT.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Cool but yeah, it helps so much, doesn't it, Janine? It's like, it's a lifesaver. And, even with my VAs, they don't, I mean, they're awesome, but they don't like know copy, like they're not copywriters, so I've been able to create a lot of content, a lot more content, a lot more quickly that they can just go out and put on my socials and, different products I'm selling, sales pages, all of that. Yeah, it's been super helpful. So all of those tools to save you time so you can travel more if that's what you want to do.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So you have had you have the Traveling Therapist podcast, which I love listening to, even though I'm not a full-time traveling therapist. I just love hearing people's stories. But you have so many therapists on that are doing this. Did it surprise
Yeah,
you when you started that how many people were actually already doing this?
it really did, because I mean, I started that traveling therapist Facebook group. I think that helped me get a better perspective because there's just people posting there constantly about all the different ways they're doing this, and
Hmm.
what I've really learned from it is you don't have to be all in, like we were saying before, like I am. You don't have to be a full-time digital nomad, but there's just so many ways to work this in. Like I just did an interview the other day. She runs retreats with her husband that is also a traveling therapist, but they bring their kids with them. So they always stay in the resorts with the kids clubs or the cruises with the kids clubs. And they invite their retreat attendees to bring their kids and families and
Wow.
they pop them all in the kids club. And then, you know, they do their retreat and then they get the kids and go to dinner and all that stuff after that, which I just thought was the coolest concept.
That is a very cool concept because so many
Yeah.
places don't like, they just don't even acknowledge that there might be family members that need to be in the equation.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was really neat. And I guess doing the podcast and the Facebook group, it's like, wow, there's so many people doing this in so many other ways, especially in other countries where, the visas aren't the same issue. You don't have to worry about like having a return flight home, that sort of thing, that they're just hopping all over the place, all over the world, really. And it's just amazing. I think obviously it wasn't nearly as prevalent back in 2018 when you and I started to be online, but now after
Mhm.
the pandemic, one of the few positives from the pandemic is this like freedom, to be able
Right.
to do whatever you want. You can go wherever you want
Hmm.
as long as your licensure is okay with it and the country you're in
Absolutely.
is okay with it. And
Hmm.
most countries don't regulate it at all. So most countries could care less if
Right.
you're
Yeah.
sitting there conducting therapy back in your state of licensure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow, this is so fascinating. I'm thinking down the road when my husband retires, we can travel because I can still do more because he's years older than me. So,
Yes. And I don't know. It's been such a blessing. And Ken's like a contractor, like an IT contractor, and his contract just ended. So now he's like looking for a new job, and the remote jobs aren't as like they're not like jumping up and down to just offer remote jobs. So he's like, oh my God, what if I can't get a remote job? What are we gonna do? And I was like, I don't know, but I'll see you later. No, I'm just kidding.
right.
Because he's like, I might have to just get like a 6-month contract somewhere at work and then we could travel. And I'm like, I think we need to just keep looking for remote work. Because I'm not ready. I'm not ready to settle down. I don't know if it's like you just get so used to like new things that
Hmm.
the thought of just like one place for 6 months seems super boring to me at this point. It's like,
Hmm.
I don't know. We go to like we've been in Punta Cana for 3 months and we were just saying yesterday, we're ready to go. Actually, we're ready to be like in another country or the US
Hmm.
where things are a lot more accessible and
Hmm.
it's just easy. It's just easier in the US, which I know is like a privilege and all that to say, but it is. And there's been some bumps here in the Dominican, like trying to get groceries and, I have a major food allergy, so I have to be super
Hmm.
careful and it's hard to find restaurants and all that stuff. So, it has its challenges for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then since we were talking about AI, you've used that to map out like itineraries and things, right? For your travels?
Yeah, yeah. I actually did a whole webinar with the traveling therapist membership on using ChatGPT just for travel. It's incredible. I actually just put a reel on my Instagram, I think it was yesterday, about travel hacks for ChatGPT travel hacks for travelers, basically. And one of them is I turned ChatGPT into a translator. So I use it to translate Spanish everywhere I am down here, basically. So any phrase I'm trying to say, I've told it I'm in the Dominican Republic and how I wanted to respond. And then, just say, hey, how do I say, where's a gluten-free restaurant or something? I put that in and it tells me like in conversational Spanish, exactly how to say it. And I trained it to, do the pronunciation for me too. So break down the pronunciation so I make sure I'm saying it correctly to whoever I'm talking to.
Hmm.
You could do it for itineraries. You could make it super specific. Like, I only want to sit on the beach and I only want to hike. I'm going to the Dominican Republic. Tell me where to go. and it'll like, I'll be there for 7 days. I want you to give me a detailed itinerary of exactly every place I should go and break down the times for each day, how I should spend my time in each place. And it'll do the whole thing for you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you're talking about that, I was thinking I have a vacation coming up in April, and I think I'm going to ask Chat GTP, can't get it out, to list specifically what I need to pack, and then only pack those things.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And you and I were talking about a really cool hack. I don't know if this is totally off topic, but we figured out that at least for the paid version, if you take a picture of something, you can upload it to ChatGPT, and you could say, I want you to analyze this picture and tell me a better way to do it, basically. So you saying that, I'm like, I wonder if you could do that with packing, like show what you're gonna pack and tell it to narrow it down to like 5 things or something from a screenshot,
Yeah, that's a great idea, because I usually lay it all out on my bed, and then I'm like, I have to start putting things back.
Yeah. So you should do that. Tell me how it goes. Like, take a picture of everything on the bed and say, all right, I need you to narrow this down for me because I'm a terrible packer. Please help me.
Right.
I'd be curious to see what it comes up with.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know in April. With my ADHD brain, I'll be packing at the last minute. So
I know. Yeah, I know. And it's hard because you just think you're going to need stuff, but you really don't. I mean, luckily we have successful jobs. We have enough money usually to pay for, if there's anything we forgot or we need, we could probably pick it up there, is what I'm learning, really. I don't need a ton of stuff lugged around with me everywhere I go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this has been a great conversation. Do you have any other thoughts that you want to make sure that you got in before we kind of wrap things up?
Think so. I mean, just know that it's possible, really, is sort of the message. It's really the reason I started the Traveling Therapist Facebook group, because I was obsessed with the lifestyle and I wanted to help other therapists be able to do that lifestyle too. So it might not look like mine, but you can do it, especially if you just want to see the world, which I think a lot of us do. And we put it off and we think, I'll do it when I retire, but it's like, we're therapists. Like, when are you going to retire? Like when you're 70, 80? I mean, who knows,
Right.
So just do it now. You can do it.
Yeah.
It's totally possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to sort of add to that too, because it is possible is so important to say, because we are raised up in grad school believing that we're going to be poor. It's a self-sacrificing industry. We're going to be burnout. We need to do all the things. And we come out of grad school with such a narrow view of what this field can be like. And there's so many people out there in Facebook groups and different places online where they're doing stuff and they're really spreading that perspective. And I love that. And I want to encourage therapists that are listening to this, like, you don't have to have a tiny little life and suffer. And I'm not saying you want to charge $500 an hour and be all private pay. There's lots of different ways to make sure you're having adequate or even good or great income as a therapist, and you are able to do things in the way that works with your life and your values and your goals.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I want everyone to take away from this. And income streams. I mean, Janine and I talk about that all the time, figuring out other income streams, like you just mentioned, intensives for brain spotting. That's so cool because it's going to give you more freedom. It's going to give you more time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah, great. Okay. All right. Well, before I wrap things up, do you have a favorite catchphrase or analogy you would like to share?
Oh gosh, I don't have one specifically, except for that message that you can have whatever kind of private practice you want to have. I'm an insurance-based private practice owner, solo private practice that works from anywhere, because that's my dream. That's what I want to do. So figure out who you want to be and then build your practice around that, instead of, like we were saying, following these grad school rules that you have to have a brick and mortar and you can't see people telehealth and you have to take all the insurances and you have to be poor. Like, you do not have to do that. Think of who you want to be and then build it around that and go from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on with me today, Kym. And we will definitely do an AI episode in the near
Yeah.
future. Where can people find information about you? And you got all the different places. So I'm going to put those in the show notes. But for traveling, where can they find you?
The travelingtherapist.com. You can go there. It's got the links to pretty much everything. And then I have a Facebook group called the Traveling Therapist Facebook group, and it's great. I mean, there's tons of resources in there and tons of therapists doing this that can help you and give you insight and even, travel suggestions if you're trying to figure out where to go. They're all really helpful in there. So
Yeah,
both those
yeah.
places.
And that's such a supportive, fun Facebook group too. You don't get people too snarky in there very often, I don't think. It seems more of a
Yeah,
sort of encouraging.
it generally is. There's a few people that, I don't know, get a little pissy about the insurance stuff, understandably, because every day there's new rules around insurance and
Yeah.
if you're allowed to be out of your state, if you're credentialed, and that's a whole other thing. But yeah.
All right. So, for everyone listening, there are new episodes of the Colleague Down the Hall podcast released every Thursday on all major platforms. Please remember, our work is hard, but it doesn't have to be lonely. Thank you so much for listening to the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to colleaguedownthehall.com, where you'll be able to learn more about getting the clinical support you need and resources to help you work in a supported, sustainable way. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your therapy friends and colleagues. Subscribe to the podcast, and if you love this episode, please leave a review.